Okay, so in today's lesson we're going to be looking at marker rendering. Now I must confess, this is not my forte, but I'm going to give it a go and see what we can achieve. So, the first thing I would suggest is when you actually take your ruler, so you've got your preformed sheet in front of you, we've got our ruler, I've just flipped it upside down. This means that when I'm inking in with a fine liner, I'm going to limit the chances of any bleed. So bleeding happens when the nib of the fine liner rubs against the edge of the ruler, and then you pull the ruler away and you get what's called like trace lines and bleeds. So all I'm going to do is just quickly speed this up and go through and ink in the whole of my square to start with. Now once we've inked in our square, we're going to get a thicker marker pen and we're just going to go around the outside line. So by that I mean if I was going to cut this shape out with a pair of scissors, this is the line I'm going to follow. So I'll just quickly do that for you. Now if you have made a mistake like I have in that corner, it's not quite lined up, you can just go back over that line and just tidy it up with that thicker black marker pen and just hide it. All this marker pen's doing is helping the design stand out from the page. So I'm just tidying that up now with the marker pen just to make it stand out a bit more. So once we've done the marker pen, I'm going to select one colour. I only need one colour at this point, and I'm going to put a colour wash with my marker pen over the whole thing. So I want to try and do it in lines. Okay, so we'll just speed that through. Now once you've done that, the most important thing now is to leave the page to dry for 5 minutes. So I'm not going to do any more with that cube. I'm actually going to move on to the next one and ink that in exactly the same way as I've already done. Now rather than using my marker pen, I'm just going to take my fine liner and just on the inside edge of the circle where we've got the hole going through, I'm just going to thicken the line to give it an idea that there's a shade, there's an edge there, so it's just slightly thicker on that point. And again, we're going to leave it to dry and we're going to go back to our green one. And this time on two of the sides, I'm going to add another layer of marker pen. And this will help to darken up and add that tone and shade that we're looking for. Now one thing we do need to be careful when using marker pens is something called bleed. So along the bottom edge I've got some bleed, and on that top edge where I've held the marker pen there down too long, and what happens is the capillary action, the pen ink bleeds into the page, so it spreads out if you hold it down there too long. Now I'm just going to add one more block of colour now to the right hand side there just to darken this up again, and that will start to build up this shade, so you can start to see that that side looks darker. Now it is important to let things dry because they always look slightly darker once they've gone on the first time, so we're just trying to blend that in using a pen, going over it, making sure we're blending it through. Now you can see the top looks a bit wishy-washy, so I'm just going to put another layer on that. It won't matter at the moment because we've got some techniques we can use to help shade this in. So I'm just going to put another layer on that, just trying to blend it so I get a more even colour. Okay, so I now want to leave that green cube to dry. Let the ink dry on that, and I'm going to repeat the same steps on the blue cube below. I'll try and slow it down when I come to do the inner circle, just so you can see how that's done in a bit more detail. So I've added the blue to one side, and then I'm just going to go over and make sure I've got an extra layer in the hole. This is what's going to create our shadow and give us the effect that we're looking for. So once it's done, it's going to look something like that as a starting point. We'll then put the wash over that side as well, and hopefully the circle will look slightly more darker, so giving the idea of it being in shadow. So on the other side of the page you'll notice that there's a cylinder and a sphere. So I'm just going to repeat the starting steps. I'm going to go over with a fine liner. So I'll just get that done quickly for you, so just keep watching a second. So by just outlining these with a fine liner pen, it's given the other two cubes that we've already coloured in chance to dry. Now what we're going to do is actually add a grey marker pen to one of the sides of the cubes just to start darkening it up. So this is like using a pencil to add shade. So I'm just going to add that grey marker pen, so it's a number 28 in the pack, and you can just see how much it darkens up that side, so it's giving it instantly the idea that it's in shade. And we're then going to repeat that on the blue cube as well. So I'm just using it to blend it in, so just going over a couple of times, make sure we've got a nice even blend. So just before we move on to the cylinder and add some colour, I'm just going to use the marker pen just to tidy up some of the lines, make sure it's nice and even. I might want to go over the black lines at the bottom there with a thick marker just to tidy that all up. Now as we move on to the cylinder and sphere, back on the thick marker just to do the outside line, remembering this is the line if we were going to cut it out. We're just going to go round that line now and add that line in. Once that's done, we're going to come on to the shading. Now the shading of cylinder is completely different to what we've been doing on the cube, so we need to watch carefully as we do. So I'm going to start with number 24, which I think is the second lightest grey I have in the pack. Now I'm going to basically colour in the whole of that cylinder, all the sides, with the grey pen. I might just leave a very small part in the centre, which is going to be like my point where the light's reflecting mostly, so that's my line there. So that's the point where the light is reflecting at its most, so we're going to leave that white. And we're just going to go up and down in stripes along that edge, going from that point out to the two sides. I'll also do the top in the 24 for the moment. Now with this, it is about a feel for the pens and knowing how to use them. So by that I mean once you start adding the pens on, so we're going to build up, so we'll go from a 24, 25, 26, 27 on the pens, because what we're looking to do is to graduate the shade from that centre line, or from that line where we've put that white in the middle, out to the two edges, so it's getting darker as it goes closer to the edge. So we use a different pen. So that was a 24 I used first. So I'm just going to speed this up and show you this. I won't do it quite as fast as some of the others, but you can see I've got 25 and I'm going to work back building up the layers. So we'll probably go from 25 through to 28 or 29. Once I've got the base colours down there, I'm going to go back to my 24 and I'm going to work through the pens again, but this time using them to blend the lines together, so it looks more like a gradual fill between the two. We don't want any hard edges there, so we just work through that now. Finally we come on to the sphere, which is a very similar technique to the cylinder. So I'm going to start again with the 24. I'm going to draw an egg shape or an oval at the top there, so that's my point of light, and I want to colour the whole thing from that point, go into the far edges in the 24, and then I'm going to build it up using the colours. So from that point where I've got that hole in the middle where there's no colour, we're going to the edges, getting darker and darker, so we work through the pens. So I'll just play that now for you. So I've just slowed this down again, so you can just see I'm just using that 27 there, just blending it, just getting that idea of that colour and shade, so it looks as if the light's hitting that centre point and it's radiating in shade to the edges. Now just to finish off this drawing, all I'm going to do is go around it with a black marker just to give that shade and that edge so it stands out off the page. Now thanks for watching the video, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please remember to check out our other videos on YouTube. Thanks again, we'll see you soon.